welcome to another episode of What's in an Ad. I'm your host, Swagam, CEO of Pint AI, aka the Marketer's GPS. You can give us a destination, your ROAS, ETR, etc., and let Pint assist you by identifying the best routes to get there via creative optimization. Today, we're diving deep into the role of the performance marketer in the age of Gen AI, right? In the age of automated creatives. And joining me is Jeric Griffin, performance marketing and SEO expert at Mars Pet Care, who has seen probably the evolution of performance marketing and SEO firsthand from the traditional way of going about it to now all the different Gen AI enhanced marketing, so to speak. We're about to explore how the shift is reshaping this landscape and what marketers should focus on today and where we're headed in the future, right? So, super excited for this one. So, hey, Jarek, glad to have you here. Could you just tell us a bit about your background and what you do at Mars?
Yeah, so I've been in a little bit of everything related to digital marketing, both in silos and collectively, which kind of led me to performance marketing. But what I always tell people is performance marketing doesn't mean that we're doing only bottom of the funnel stuff. It just means that we're putting a focus on it so that it is as efficient as possible as part of the whole digital marketing strategy. So I've worked in healthcare marketing, automotive marketing, content marketing, and then now, like you mentioned, at Mars Pet Care and performance marketing with SEO kind of as its tandem partner is evolving, to use your word, and that is, I think, might also be an understatement. But that's kind of where we're at right now with Mars, is trying to continue to evolve it so that all of our marketing efforts, especially ad buys and any other dollar spent, are as efficient as possible.
Wow. I mean, that's great because you've seen the array of not just different parts of marketing, but also different areas, right? So
Yeah.
that'll be very useful in this. So the reason why I really like to do this type of conversation is because every marketer has a unique insight slash priority when it comes to marketing with AI, right? And many might disagree with it, but you're sure about it. So what's your unique perspective or priority?
I think, I mean, at the risk of sounding cliche, it's putting the customer first,
Hmm.
because in a lot of cases we design customer journeys and buying funnels, and we try to marry those things together, and we talk about UX, but we talk about it in a way that makes us want to give the user this very specific task to complete when they arrive at our app, our landing page, or whatever
Yeah.
else, however they start their process with us. And a lot of times we kind of, as marketers and people on the business side, we tend to narrow that focus so much that we forget that the people on the other end are people like us who want a really good user experience. And you can't have a good user experience if your marketing is not good to get you there in the first place. And, we mentioned SEO earlier. SEO and UX are basically the same thing now. And so if you don't have those things kind of put together and your focus is not that to where you want a user experience that would be ideal for you as the customer, then you really don't have a foundation to build the rest of the strategy off of.
Mm. No, no, absolutely. That's true. And it's very interesting because both these areas are your SEO, your user experience, they're evolving separately as well.
Right.
Simultaneously, the intersection is also evolving, right? I mean, this really confuses me a lot, right? Because what performance marketing used to be before, or any different type of marketing used to be before, is the definition is kind of changing because each of these areas are changing, they're coming together, they're mixing, etc. So, based on what you've seen before and now, especially with Gen AI coming in, do you see the role of the performance marketer being different, being something, going through some sort of a redefinition?
Absolutely. Because I think most cases, and I've talked to a lot of people recently who are hiring performance marketing managers or directors or whatever, whatever level it is at their company. And if you ask six of them, you'll get at least four different definitions or wildly different job descriptions for what they're wanting. Because in some cases, they say performance marketing and they really mean growth marketing, which is obviously not the same thing.
Mhm.
In some cases, they mean just digital marketing as a whole, and in some cases they just want somebody to run Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And so the definition of that, I think, is, to use your word again, it is evolving for sure, because a lot of people still don't know exactly what performance marketing means. And even those who do, a lot of them are siloing it out into one specific thing, to where that's all they're doing. They're only running these super low funnel ads on, Meta or Google Performance Max or whatever it is.
Huh.
And they're neglecting basically everything else in the customer journey. They're definitely neglecting everything else in the buying funnel. And by proxy, they're neglecting some things in the user experience. So that's a longer answer to your question than maybe you're wanting, but that's definitely how I've experienced it, and that's as recently as this week, having those conversations.
Oh, that's absolutely crazy because okay, I'll put you on the spot then, right? Because you did mention what it means for you to be a performance marketer today, but given the fact that there's so many definitions, how would you go about defining it?
So the way that I think it should be defined, to clarify, is you need to have someone who is marketing savvy, obviously digital marketing savvy, and that person has got to be able to utilize the, I don't want to say generic, but the more generalized marketing in the upper parts of the buying funnel, and
Hmm.
be able to efficiently activate on those things in the mid to lower parts of the funnel. But again, that person can't only be focused on that and only have experience there. They've got to be able to tie those things together. And it's not
Yeah.
just a buying funnel that funnels down. You've got to be able to then metaphorically take those people at the bottom of that funnel and utilize them for your audiences, which you use on targeting platforms. CRM activations, especially, are huge within that process, to then start to fill up that buying funnel again at the top. And so that's, I think, to define it, has got to be somebody who understands that and is also able to pivot at any moment of that buying funnel or customer journey, so that anything that changes, whether it be technology, user behavior, which that's been the biggest thing over the last 12 months in my experience, or just changes in business need, budgets, whatever, and being able to quickly pivot based on any of those things that may pop up, especially when they're unexpected. And again, that's where I think a lot of companies and individuals who are trying to get into that are failing, because they're only focusing on one aspect of it. It's like, the blinders on the horse. They can't see the rest of it, can't see the forest for the trees. What any other cliche you want to throw in there, but I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest piece of the definition.
No, that's really well put because at the end of the day, it is one of the most interdisciplinary roles out there, right? Which requires you to not only have an interdisciplinary mindset, but also the ability to use multiple tools in your arsenal to be able to get that maybe one or two or max five results. Um, but you said something very interesting in this, right? Which is that over your lifetime, you're seeing user behavior being the biggest change and being the I don't know, the reason why things are changing as much, right? Could you elaborate a little more on that? Like, what about user behavior is changing, and how should marketers cope with it?
Sure. I mean, you can have a lot of different examples. The first example that comes to mind would be, especially in the SEO space, you would have users searching in different ways. So at the beginning, that could
Hmm.
be something as simple as they're searching for a synonym of a word that they used to be searching for. So the volume changes from, car parts to auto parts, as an example. And that's hypothetical, but like those types of things happen all the time, especially when I was working in
Yeah.
automotive marketing. So you have that first and foremost. Another example with search would be users changing from these fragmented, keywords and phrases to more, especially in this new era of like Perplexity and Chat GPT and these like voice and AI based search engines. They're searching with more context,
Hmm.
and they're searching in like full questions that come with that context, especially when they're speaking it. When they're speaking it, they're going to ask a question versus just saying like auto parts, like into your Siri or your Google Assistant or your Gemini or whatever. So those are two easy examples that come into play. If you back up 50,000 feet, you can talk about the change from, desktop to mobile, and how mobile over the last several
Yeah.
years has become so focused. An example there would be, I was talking to someone recently, a friend of mine that owns owns their own business, and they were redesigning their website, and they had all these beautiful wireframes, and they had the dev site popped up, and we were going through everything and looking at some of their back end code. And I said, hey man, this looks great, but like, what does this look like on mobile? And he said, oh, we haven't got to that yet. And I was like, so we looked at their Google Analytics, and 87% of their traffic came from mobile. And I told him, I said, man, you need all these wireframes need to be mobile, like
Yeah.
not scrap the desktop ones, but the mobile ones have got to be first and foremost. And it blows me away that in late 2024, we're now in Q4 of 2024, believe it or not, so many people still are building their strategies and optimizing their experiences based on data that is years old, and in digital marketing that might as well be light years, because that they were just completely neglecting their mobile design. And had we not kind of changed gears and got them going on a mobile first strategy, that would have changed everything. So I know I've given examples kind of all over the map there, but those are all things that I've seen that are changing with user behavior. And if marketers, whether they be performance based or not, don't adapt to that, they will reap the consequences in a negative way.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. And you also mentioned that the fact is that you're using data from before, right, to make decisions today. And as of now, today, everything is changing very, very quickly. So data even from 1 year before might have very little relevance to, 3 months before. But I just want to get into that part, right? What are the data sources that can help you understand user behavior better, right? Because there's so many different ways that a marketer could look at this entire aspect of things and honestly get lost in it. So how would you go about categorizing the main things to keep up to date, to identify that this is what I will make decisions based out on when it comes to user behavior?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, any sort of website data that you have, so whether that's Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics or whatever your main website analytical tool is the best place to start. And if you're app based, or you're working on a retail website, whatever it is, making sure that you have the most raw data point for the main digital space where your customers or your uh, clients or whoever it is are coming to you. And then within that, looking and saying, okay, what has changed over time? Because you may have built this wonderful landing page last year that was mobile optimized, and it improved your conversion rate, and you were able to tell your CEO that we did CRO, and he asked what that means, and then that was a whole other conversation. And you get to that point, and then maybe now a year later you're looking and saying, we did all those things and it was so wonderful, but maybe now the people that are coming to our business for whatever you know service that you offer, whatever that may be, maybe those people are now wanting something else. Maybe they're saying, hey, we would prefer to go to this page first, or we would prefer to view this content first. And so like, to use an e-commerce as an example, because Mars Pet Care,
Yeah.
some users in some cases, depending on where they are in the funnel or what the product is or any other random variable, maybe they want to go to a category page or a PLP first. Maybe they want to go directly to the PDP. Maybe they need to land on a content landing page that gives them more context and information about the product before they even want to see any more details about it. Or maybe they need to land on a blog post. They're so far up the funnel that they need a blog post to tell them what it is that they're even looking for. And so
Yeah.
all those things kind of come into play. And so all those pieces of data then give you a starting point, because I know you asked, like, what should you use? They give you a starting point to say, what do our customers or our clients actually want? And the last thing I'll say on that is I've been using this phrase. I was on another podcast recently and I used this phrase, and I've been using it a lot more lately. Is I call it the Alice in Wonderland philosophy. The customer
Oh,
has got to be able to get to everywhere from everywhere. Because going back to the beginning of our conversation, generally when they click on an ad or our organic search result or whatever it is, we get them to a place and we want them to do this one specific action or go down this one specific journey. And that's fine if that's what we put first and foremost and encourage them to do that. But if we don't give them the opportunity to explore everything else, they're much more likely to leave. And I think that's probably my biggest takeaway for the most recent changes in user behavior in 2024.
I, that's extremely interesting because for me, it juxtaposes, personalization, which everybody is, just obsessed with as of now, versus
Yeah.
you're talking about freedom in a sense for the user, right? Which is, I mean, I think it's the first time I've heard about it in this context, and obviously it makes sense if I look at it from a consumer's point of view. Absolutely. So, how would you go about, juggling these two things right now?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And I think going
Oh,
back to our earlier conversation, a question you asked, I think that's what a lot of people get wrong is they think that personalization is the opposite of freedom. And I don't think that that's the case because you can personalize an experience. For example, a friend of mine yesterday posted on LinkedIn about Amazon, and they are now following in Google's footsteps where they are customizing the product titles on their
mm,
own using AI to so that it's more personalized to each individual customer. I think that's wonderful. But when they're doing that, they're just the personalization is an entry point. It's not the end all be all. And people are
mm,
looking at personalization as the end point of the customer journey when actually it should be the beginning point. If you use personalization, you are much more likely to find the right fish that you're fishing for, to use that metaphor. Find the right customers for you. But once you get them in that digital door, from there, then give them the freedom. Just like my house or your house is probably laid out, like you walk in the front door and there's a clear path to get to wherever you are wanting to go to, whether that be the kitchen for me, or some people may want to go straight to their bedroom or living room. Whatever it
mm,
is, there's a clear path for you to go to, but you also have the freedom to go anywhere else if that makes sense for you in that moment in your journey. And so there's a product that I clicked on, I won't call them out, that I clicked on a Facebook ad earlier this week as a cliche typical elder millennial. It was a great ad that was customized to me, and I clicked on it and I got there, and there was one button on the page with one line, and it was very clear what they wanted me to do. And by examining the URL, it was obvious that that was a landing page that was only specific to that Facebook ad. And so because of that, they had stripped off their navigation, they'd stripped off their footer and everything else.
yeah.
And I actually posted about it on LinkedIn to that product. And I said, I'm not trying to blast you guys, but I probably would have become a customer of yours had you given me the opportunity to explore the rest of your site and read about your product a little bit more before you just forced this product page and this buy now button down my throat. And that's a very extreme example, obviously. But again, it goes back to my, more flowery verbiage of the Alice in Wonderland philosophy. If they'd have let me get to everywhere else that I wanted to, I would have come ultimately to where they wanted me to be. But because they didn't give me that freedom, the personalization kind of they overdid it, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, that's amazing because I mean, it kind of answers the getting lost in all of this question. Because
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, you're trying to find some deterministic way to make sure they click it. And that's why I think there's an obsession with personalization, saying that if you make it personalized enough, they're bound to click that, right? But what you're saying is, I mean, there's equal likelihood of them bounding, I mean, to click something else that is on the screen as long as you give them the opportunity to go into it. But you need to get them in first, right? And personalization is that starting point. Now,
Yeah.
that is a very refreshing perspective. I have to say that. And it makes so much sense as well. And I just want to just go into one track right now, right? Just talk about the tools in all of this. We've spoken about personalization. We've spoken about the ability to, get the right data and make decisions. Now, there is one thing that really irks me in this entire space because I'm also in this space in terms of ad tech. But everywhere you go, the conversation is, where does the marketer fit in the AI workflow when it's supposed to be, where does AI fit in the marketer's workflow, right? We're kind of shifting things in maybe not in marketer circles, but other folks, other areas right now. And I just want to bring that back and say, dude, there is a marketer workflow first to begin with. And AI comes in very, very specific areas to make them make those better decisions. Now, I just want to hear from you. Where do you think those critical areas are, right? I've heard before that you spoke about automation and curation. Does that fall under this same bracket?
I mean, definitely, it definitely is in the same bucket, to use your word, for sure.
Hmm.
And I think we've obviously, as a society, have scratched the surface of what generative AI can do for us, whether that be from a personalization standpoint or really anything else in business or marketing. Kind of what you guys are doing at Pint AI is a really, I think, a stepping stone to that, because we're still in the stone ages
Yeah.
of AI. But I think we can use any tool that's out there, because you could do something as simple as using the free version of your favorite LLM, whether that be Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. Big fan of Claude myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can use any of those things and say, hey, my goal for this landing page is for the user to experience fill in the blank, whatever you want them to experience. And, say, hey, look at this page and tell me, do you agree with that? Like, do you think that I've accomplished that? Would you feel that way? And that's what I've used. That I've used those LLMs for a lot recently is just feedback in the mind of a very specific person. You can give it. We talked earlier about context, like, hey, Claude, GPT, whatever. You are an expert in this field, or you are a brand new customer, shopping for their very first whatever the product is. Do you think you'd be able to find that quickly and easily on this landing page that I've made? If not, what should I do differently? And I'm not saying that you should take everything that LLM tells you as like gospel and you have to do it that way. But using it as a perspective that's different than somebody else. Like if I send you something from my website and say, "Hey, Swagam, will you look at that and tell me what you think about it?" Comparing that to what each of those LLMs tell you, that's a very quick and easy, basic, and in some cases free way to use those tools for that. And obviously, going back earlier, you mentioned the analytics and the data. You can take that data, plug it into those LLMs or whatever your favorite AI tool is, and say, hey, based on this data, I'm thinking I should do this. Do you see something different with that data? Do you think I should do something completely opposite? And just see what they say. And in some cases, they may not give you like this bona fide answer that's just the solution to all your problems, but it will a lot of times give you the idea for you as the human to go, okay, that's the spark that I needed to go make this update, and then you're off and running from
Again, an extremely cool perspective, because for me, from what I was hearing, is that you can essentially have recurring feedback loops, right? Which
there.
allow you to, get to where you want to probably quickly, right? Or much quicker than you would usually get to, because you're essentially using it. It's still you making the decisions, but your ability to take in feedback, to input feedback, etc., has increased. So I'm just going to have one last question on that front in itself, which is that if that's the case, you have a system which can essentially, reduce your dependency on quantity and focus more on quality. Let's just say on the creative space, right? Is that a way that marketers should look at it, or do you look at it in that way versus the quantity versus quality debate when it just comes to creatives and Gen AI?
I think there's a balance between quality and quantity. I think if quality is not your north star or
Mm.
your main focus, then the quantity will never come. Um, I should say quantity could come, but it won't. But the quantity that you get will be such low quality that it won't matter. And a perfect example of that I'll give just quickly is recently working with, or in my past role working with a client in automotive, and they didn't care about quality. They said that verbatim. They said, I just want the most quantity possible. And I said, look, I can get you leads at 20 cents each if you don't care about the quality, but you're not going to get any sales from those leads because the quality will be so low. And of course, they didn't
Mhm.
listen. We did it. We had thousands and thousands of leads, and I think they had one sale off of it. And so obviously,
Oh.
that closing ratio was not pleasing to their superiors. And I said, look, let me intentionally increase your cost per lead by 5x. And of course, eyes get big. And I said, trust me. And we lowered the leads, the quantity of leads by about 10x, but their sales increased 10x. So their closing ratio went from, a decimal to like, 7, which is an incredible percentage for that specific client in that specific market. And I know that's a very specific example, but if your quality is not guiding your decision making, then any quantity that you get won't be worth having, and it won't do anything positive for your
Mm.
business.
I mean, yep, absolutely. Again, hit the nail on the head on that as well. I mean, I think we're out of time, so thank you so much, Jeric. This was very eye-opening for me personally, and I'm sure it'll be for everybody else listening as well. For our audience, I'll see you next week with our next guest. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, man.